In our weekly reading, we learn in Parshat Behalotcha about the second Passover offering. We actually read this passage twice. We read it once during Pesach itself, on one of the days of Pesach. Every day of Pesach we read a different passage from different episodes that had to do with Pesach. And on one of the days, closer to the end of Pesach, we read, usually the last day of Chol HaMoed, I think, we read this passage about the Pesach that the Jewish people brought in the desert, and also the Pesach Sheni. In a sense, Pesach Sheni is a very interesting holiday, if you could call it a holiday, and that is that the Jewish people asked for it. There were people who felt that they're missing out, and they asked Hashem, they asked Moshe what to do, and Moshe asked Hashem, and Hashem said, okay, they could bring Pesach Sheni. There is a compensation a month later. Today, Pesach Sheni means very little to us. There are some people who have a custom to eat a piece of matzah on that day, but generally this day is a regular weekday. And even at the time of the temple, this day was only meaningful for those who missed on the regular Pesach offering. Now notice, on that day, they do not have to abstain from chametz, because they already did everything else that has to do with Passover, and that is they eat matzah, they didn't eat chametz, they didn't keep chametz in the house. All of that they kept like everybody else. It's only the offering itself, the Pesach korban, that they didn't bring, and that is compensated a month later. So at the time when the temple was standing, those who couldn't bring the Pesach Rishon would bring Pesach Sheni, and they would eat it together with matzah as part of the regular eating of korban Pesach. But they did not have to abstain from chametz. They could have had bread on their table as well. That's what the Talmud tells us. Pesach Sheni is not forbidden, even for them. It's not forbidden to have chametz. So what I wanted to say about this particular episode is that when Hashem tells Moshe what the law is for people who are not able to bring Pesach Rishon, the Torah uses the language, a person who was far away or unclean. And what's considered far away? There are two opinions in the Talmud. One opinion is that far away means a person would take half a day to walk that distance, meaning they were basically away far enough that they wouldn't make it on the 14th of Nisan, when you're supposed to bring Korban Pesach in the second half of the day. They just wouldn't make it. That's why they're considered far away. So it's half of a day's walk. But there is a different opinion, because there's a dot on top of this letter, of this word, Rechoka, far. Very rare situation, a few places in the Torah where we have dots on top of letters. And there is an opinion that this emphasis, this dot emphasizes that Rechoka doesn't have to be taken literally, really far away. Even a person who is just outside the temple, he's already considered far away. You could call it kind of liberal interpretation in this case of these verses, because the point is that a person who does not bring Korban Pesach gets karet. That's one of the worst punishments. Usually karet is given for negative commandments. A person, for instance, who breaks Shabbat or worships idols or has relations with various forbidden women, like his own mother or his own daughter or sister or somebody else's wife. That's the types of things for which karet is prescribed. But on the positive commandments, something you have to do, there are only two cases where the Torah says that the person who doesn't do it is going to get karet. Most karets are for violations, for negative commandments, but it's only the two positive commandments are Brit Milah, circumcision, and Pesach Korban. So the Torah here says that the person who was not far away and was not unclean and he still doesn't bring the Pesach, he's going to get karet. So I guess the liberal interpretation, to exclude almost everybody from that karet, basically saying that it's only if the person is in the temple itself and still doesn't bring the korban, only then he gets karet. But if a person is outside the temple, he is already far enough. It's already considered rechoka, derech rechoka, far enough that he doesn't get karet. That doesn't mean that it's completely okay that he didn't bring korban Pesach. There's a general discussion of how much a person has to try in order to fulfill the mitzvot, especially if it's a mitzvah that you have to go far in order to fulfill it. But certainly, if a person would be, let's say, half a mile away from the temple and he doesn't bother to bring Korban Pesach, it's not a good thing. He was supposed to do it. It's just the question is that this interpretation makes it at least not as strictly punishable, I guess. Meaning he doesn't get karet at least. So he didn't come to the temple, he didn't bother to enter the temple. It's not okay, but he doesn't get karet for it. It's only if he was in the temple itself and he didn't bother to bring Korban Pesach. That's when he gets karet. I wanted to tell a few words about the particular place in the Talmud where a lot of these things are discussed, because there are interesting corollaries of this discussion that have to do with the concept of Bein Hashmashot. Let me explain. So, as I said, the first opinion, which is the main opinion, that the distance, how far a person has to beat in order to be considered to be Derech Rechoka, a faraway place, is a half a day's walk. And one of the opinions is that it's a 15 mil. A mil was less than a mile. It's also probably the similar word. There were all kinds of miles throughout history that different nations had. So a mil is some kind of a distance that's maybe closer to a kilometer. So it would be maybe about 2/3 of a mile or so, or whatever. Different opinions exactly how much that distance was. So one opinion is that 15 of such mils is the distance that a person can walk in half a day. The Talmud actually concludes with a different opinion, that it's 20 such mils. About 20 kilometers, I guess, that a person can walk throughout the day. And in that discussion, the Talmud mentions how long a person can walk at the time when it's only getting light, from the beginning of light in the east, right? From what's called Amut HaShachar, when the very earliest dawn, when you could just see a little bit of light in the east happens, until sunrise, a person could walk 4 mil. Then there was a different opinion also, but we're going to go according to the opinion that it seems the conclusion of the Talmud. And then throughout the day, a person can walk for 40 mil. And then another 4 mil he could walk while it's getting dark, from sundown till all the stars come out on the sky, till it gets completely dark. So in a different place, in what I just quoted is in tractate Pesachim, of course, in a tractate that deals with Pesach, with Passover. But in a different place in the Talmud, in tractate Shabbat, it says that between the sundown and basically the end of Bein Hashmashot, the end of twilight, is only about 3/4 of a mil. So that's a relatively short distance to walk. It's just a few minutes, maybe 13 and a half minutes or a little bit more, depending on how long it took to walk a mil. So that would seem to contradict what we just said, that a person walks a whole 4 mil, more than an hour, between sundown and when the stars come out. So there are two main interpretations that try to resolve this difficulty. One interpretation is that the stars that we're talking about in tractate Pesachim are all stars, meaning when it gets completely dark. Because a person used to walk while there's still a little bit of light. Just like in the morning, he walks from the beginning of light, from dawn. So too, later they could continue walking when it's still some light in the west. And therefore, the 4 mil, more than an hour it takes until all stars come out. But when it comes to Bein Hashmashot, and the important thing about all this is that the coming out of stars is a very important time in all kinds of Jewish laws. And that is, it's the beginning of the night. Until then, it's called Bein Hashmashot, meaning we're not sure. Between sundown and the stars that come out, it's a time when it's maybe day, maybe night. Only when the stars come out can we consider this night. So in particular, Shabbat would end at the time when the stars come out. So according to this interpretation, what it says in tractate Shabbat, that relatively soon after sundown the stars come out, that's talking about the laws of Shabbat and similar laws. In terms of ritual laws, even though there's still a lot of light in the sky, since the stars come out already, average stars already come out, all you need is 3 average stars. And that is enough to consider it night in terms of end of Shabbat, in terms of reading the evening Shema, and all kinds of other Jewish laws for which the mitzvot that you need to do at night. On the other hand, what it says in tractate Pesachim, the 4 mil distance, that's how long it takes for a person to walk while there's still some light in the sky, until all the stars come out. until it gets totally dark. And that's the opinion of Vilna Gaon. And all of these shiurim, as he says, all of these times are for the land of Israel around the time of equinox, spring or fall equinox. But during other times of the year, and certainly in the places far north, Vilna Gaon itself, of course, lived in Vilna, which is much further north in Israel. So there, in the summer, it could take a lot longer for the stars to come out, for the twilight, for the Bein Hashmashot to finish. But in Israel, according to the Vilna Gaon's calculation, the stars come out relatively soon after sundown. There is a different opinion that there are two kinds of sundowns that we can discuss. One is that when the sun is no longer seen on the horizon, and another is when it's completely, its main light is basically finished, and it's only the remaining maybe 13.5 minutes or whatever, like a relatively short time. That's the Bein Hashmashot. So according to the second opinion, when the sun goes down, the day is not over yet. The day is still continuing for another almost hour. And then Bein Hashmashot, the twilight, continues for another, let's say, 13.5 minutes. So in practice, a lot of people outside the land of Israel keep Shabbat according to the opinions of some middle opinion. That is, they don't necessarily wait 72 minutes after sundown, and that is the opinion attributed to Rabbeinu Tam, but they wait maybe an hour or 50 minutes after sundown, and consider that the time when enough stars come out that the day is over. But they don't fully follow the Gra either. According to the Gra, let's say New York, the stars would be coming out even in the summer much less than half an hour after sundown. Very few people would wait so little after sundown, and they usually wait longer than that for Shabbat to be over, to make sure that the stars come out. On the other hand, on Friday we all follow the Vilna Gaon, meaning we do not consider the time after sundown to still be day. As soon as the sun is no longer seen at the horizon, we consider that at least Safek Shabbat. Maybe it's already Shabbat. So therefore we light the Shabbat candles sometime before sundown. And the opinion of the first Chabad Rebbe was very similar. Not exactly the same as the Vilna Gaon's opinion, but close enough. And therefore the influence of these great sages was such that basically people accepted at least Lechumra, what's called, to the strict side of their opinion, but not necessarily fully to the lenient side. These topics, of course, are far more complex, and there is a lot of discussion on this, and I'm not gonna, whole books are written on these subjects. I'm just trying to summarize. But the point of the matter is that why in Tractate Pesachim the whole discussion is even raised is because, as I said, they're trying to understand how long it takes, how far a person can walk in half a day. Since according to Halacha, we follow the opinion that Derech Rechoka, far away place, is half a day's walk. So how much is half a day's walk? Now, a lot of people heard that the mil, which I just mentioned, the distance of mil, people used to walk within 18 minutes. There are other opinions too, but let me explain where that shita comes from. It's based on the following idea. As we said, that a person walks 40 mil from sunrise to sundown on an average day, when the day equals night, right, and during the equinox. So therefore, in 12 hours, a person can walk 40 mil. So then it's easy to calculate if they walk 40 mil in 12 hours, then each mil is walked in 18 minutes. This is a relatively simple calculation. You just have to multiply 12 by 60, right? That's the number of minutes in 12 hours, and divide by 40. That's the number of mil a person walks throughout the 12 hours. So therefore, each mil is 18 minutes. Now the other opinions are based on other understandings of this Gemara. For example, there is a possibility that the 40 mil includes the time between the dawn and sunrise, and the time between sundown and or complete darkness. So according to this, from sunrise to sundown, a person walks not 40 mil, but only 32 mil. 40 minus 4 minus 4. So then you have to multiply again, 60 by 12 and divide by 32. And then it comes out a little bit more than 18 minutes, the time that it takes to walk a mil. And by the way, the Talmud mentions this time that it takes to walk a mil, an average time for an average person to walk a mil. It's mentioned in the Talmud in various other laws. So it's an important number. How long it takes, how long it takes to walk a mil. And on this I'm going to end for today. If you like this video, please press like and please subscribe to our channel.